Welcome to the Landlord Diaries, where we talk about midterm rentals and the opportunities behind them. We'll share landlord stories, talk about maximizing investment potential, and discuss how to live the very best landlord life. This podcast is proudly brought to you by Furnished Finder, the leader and largest online marketplace for midterm rentals. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy our content.
Hey guys, it's Kelly Bailey, your host of the Landlord Diaries, and my beautiful, wonderful co-host, Katie Lyon, our marketing director. We both have a handful to almost a dozen midterm rentals in and around the country. And that's what we love about this Landlord Diaries show is we get to tell you midterm rental host stories of Furnished Finder hosts from all around the country. So enjoy those. You don't have to watch them in order, which is really nice. You just pick a title or a story that sounds intriguing and you dive in. Katie, we get to talk with Sam Primm today of the FasterFreedom podcast. What did you get from Sam today?
Yeah, Sam was awesome. He's got this massive portfolio. He's grown really quickly, and he also pours back into the real estate community pretty heavily. So it was a really interesting conversation to hear how he's integrating midterms and how he's pivoting some of his properties. So it was a really kind of inspiring and eye-opening conversation to hear, from someone who has such a diverse portfolio and what their view on midterm and Furnished Finder is. So definitely check it out. And we remind you guys always, we would love your feedback on YouTube comments. And if you're enjoying this and you know any other landlords, please share this with them as well.
Sam Primm is a legend in the real estate investing and education world with over 250 doors, $46 million in assets within 7 years, 2.7 million followers on social media, 1.4 thousand students nationwide, and author of the book Own Your Freedom. Exciting news, Sam is a host on Furnished Finder and will be starting a midterm rental masterclass this year. Sam, we're so excited to have you with us. How are you today?
I am super excited to be here. I'm doing well. I appreciate you having me. That intro made me sound way cooler than I am, but I'm okay with it.
I like your humbleness then too.
Hey, that's our goal, right? We want everyone to sound amazing because you guys really are. So,
yep.
I'll take it.
Take it.
So our first question that we'll jump into is tell us about your current portfolio and how you grew the portfolio to where it is today.
Yeah, so I feel like how a lot of people started. So I had a full-time job and I was wanting to maybe quit my job eventually, but I definitely knew I wanted to create more wealth some way, somehow, and kind of have control over that. So back in, 2014, 2015 timeframe, I started investing on the side while having a full-time job with a buddy. And, my initial plan was to replace my, actual W-2 income with rental cash flow, which I feel like is a lot of people's plan. And it's a really dumb plan. Let's put it that way. It's really hard because most properties don't cash flow enough to actually replace your income. So anyways, we started down that path and saw that pretty quickly after getting a handful of rentals, and then started to get into wholesaling and fixing and flipping so that I could quit my job. So then I quit my job in 2018 and went all in from 10 hours a week to real estate to 60, 70 hours a week into real estate. So that's what I've been doing for the past 5 years, all full time in real estate, and growing that rental portfolio along the way. There's some 6 apartment complexes in there. There's some self-storage. There's a hotel in there, and then the rest are single family rentals. So kind of get a gambit of all types of real estate investing, from wholesaling to flipping and to pretty much most asset classes in the rental space.
Excellent. And I'm pretty sure I heard on another podcast that you have 6 apartment complexes, you've got some self-storage facilities, you've got a boutique hotel, a little bit of everything mixed in with those single-family homes. But our show is specifically about midterm rentals, so tell us about your midterm rental portfolio.
Yeah, so I got into the midterm rental craze about a year ago, maybe a little bit less, and just looking at the numbers, I was looking at properties that didn't really cash flow And then I inserted midterm rentals as an option, assuming they made sense. And then they all of a sudden cash flowed pretty well, at least on paper. And now we're starting to see the actual benefits of that in reality with some of the things we've done. And the very first one actually was one of my apartment complexes. Apartment complexes, the value of them is based on the income they produce. Unlike single families, the value of single families is based on the market and the sales around it. So in order to increase that income of that apartment complex, we started, taking a few units and doing a midterm in one or a short term in the other, try to figure out ways to increase the cash flow of those specific units. And that happened. Our first midterm rental, one unit, we took a studio apartment from one of our apartment complexes. It was netting about $100 a month. And then we inserted a midterm rental into it, and it netted about $1,100 a month. So we got, over 10 times the rental income because we inserted a midterm rental. So right now, this is good and bad. I probably can't tell you the exact number because I've kind of, do other things. But in general, we have 3 or 4 different midterm rentals in apartment complexes, and then we have 3 or 4 different houses. And so we're getting close to double digits in the midterm rental space. And I see us continuing to transition some of our short terms and our long terms to midterms throughout this year.
I love that. I love how you've talked about pivoting as well, right? Like, because there's so many options within real estate, and midterms do serve a really good role for anyone who's looking to create more cash flow than a long term, or, take a little bit of stress off from a short term, and it doesn't have to be a difficult pivot. So love that. All right. Well, you started your real estate journey in 2014. So we're looking at about 10 years ago now. So what advice would you give to 2014 Sam as he's just getting started? Because like you said, a lot of people get into this kind of wanting to replace their full-time income and things like that, but they might not realize that, like you said, you're working 60, 70 hours a week now. So it's not that you're not working, and you've really got to love it. So tell us what you know now that you wish you would have known then.
Well, that's the first thing, and I'll kind of expand on that a little bit. But the first thing is a lot of people that want to buy rentals are in it for the long-term wealth gains, but then they also think that, hey, I'm going to cash flow, $300, $400, $500 a month, and I'm trying to replace 10 grand in income, so I need to buy this many rental properties. And it's really not a good way to do it from what I've seen, and I've seen, a lot of my students go through the same thing. Just stuff comes up, and you don't want to, your rental property rental, your cash flow does fluctuate, especially if you have long-term and short-terms. Midterm is a nice little sweet spot, but it does fluctuate. So you can't expect for everything to be collected 100%, everything to go perfectly, and try to live off that money. So one thing I would tell myself is get into wholesaling and get into fixing and flipping sooner if your goal is to replace your job, because you need that active income. And we're not telling people to go get into, crypto or something. We're still talking real estate, right? So go find distressed properties, turn them into rental properties, and occasionally flip a few or wholesale a few to replace your active income. So that's the first thing I'd tell myself. And the second thing I'd probably tell myself is just get ready to continue to do the same thing over and over again with minimal results for a long time. Now, I'm kind of hard-headed, kind of not the brightest bulb in the box, so I continue to push through, but I feel like a lot of people stop because they want those immediate results. And we're creating wealth here, not widgets, I'd like to tell my students. So it takes time. It's not something you're going to be able to funnel hack or something you're going to be able to recreate in 6 months or even a year. This stuff takes time. If you're looking for true wealth and true financial freedom and independence, it takes time, and it's going to take a lot of, bumping your head against the wall, a lot of doing the same thing over and over again and not seeing a ton of traction, but then eventually it will snowball. So those are the two things I'd kind of say is cash flow is not going to replace your W-2 income anytime soon, and then be ready to not see a lot of results for a long time.
I love that. I think also that something that's important that you kind of touched on is that with midterm rentals, like you said with that one example, you might bump up to $1,100 a month in cash flow, right? And that's, you're going to multiply that and you can scale that. You also have to have that contingency. Like you said, you never know when some plumbing is going to break or you're going to have a vacancy or something like that. But midterm has such a low barrier to entry, right? So it's like, you don't have to be trying to replace your full-time income. You can have $1,100 extra a month, and that's a game changer for a lot of people. So I think, like you said, a lot of times it's this emphasis put on you have to quit your full-time job. You have to quit your full-time job. It's like, what about just having the luxury of just some extra money, right? And some wealth building in the background. I think all too often in our society, we focus on these like huge, bipolar ideas where it's like, you either have to like quit your job or you have to do nothing, or you have to be like all in or nothing. It's like, there's nothing wrong if you want to have a couple of these properties working for you in the background, giving you some supplementary monthly income and building that wealth as well. So I'd love to hear your take on that, as well as your take on how that can apply to landlording, because I know, landlording for 1 or 2 properties is a whole lot different than if you're going to be the landlord for a lot of properties. And people have different perspectives on being landlords. And some think, oh my gosh, I'm going to get a call every single night that the toilet's clogged. And other people think I'm going to put a tenant in there and I'm going to be able to go on vacation and never come back. So tell us your experience with that, and maybe especially with these midterm travelers.
Yeah, for sure. So to hit on that first part of that question, I 100% agree. It's, to me, and midterm rentals are helping me look at cash flow and kind of salivate a little more. I never really cared about cash flow that much because it's all about the wealth that's created. Like you mentioned, if somebody can just get 2 or 3 of these things, real estate in general, based on historical actuals, doubles in value every 15 years. So that's why I didn't care about the cash flow side. Maybe that's why I wasn't cash flowing, right? Like a ton. It's because I'm in it for the long term. I can get cash flow and extra cash flow now with midterms, and I can get that property value growth, and the tenant pays down the mortgage and all the tax benefits you get. Shoot, 2 or 3 properties, you can probably, and again, I'm throwing out some generalities here, but most likely you'll be able to retire a couple years, if not maybe 5 years earlier. 3 properties aren't going to allow you to probably retire in your 30s, but if you get 3 rental properties in your 30s, you might be able to retire at 55 or 60. So again, it doesn't have to be, like you said, this huge, polarization of it's complete this or complete that. There are some nuances and there are multiple benefits to owning the number one, wealth building tool, which is real estate. So again, I think I used to look at it as just that, and cash flow is kind of like one of those things where I'm getting my active income elsewhere. But now with midterms specifically, you're able to kind of get the best of both worlds, because like we talked about on my podcast with Katie, there are so many different benefits to midterm rentals. And then as far as managing them, I feel like midterms are kind of more up my alley anyway. I have, 200 and almost 300 rental doors right now, but we still treat our tenants like people. We are landlords, not slumlords. We care. We spend some extra time approving the tenant. Our tenants stay an average of 4 years on our long-term rentals. Wow. Because we spend an extra 30, 60 days getting the right tenant, the right communication, the right system set up in the first place, rather than just approving anybody that makes enough money that can fog a mirror and they move every year or 2. You're not going to cash flow, especially in today's market, midterm or definitely long-term, by just approving people that move out every year. So we already were doing the right thing and already, treating them like people and communicating and trying to build a relationship with them. So that's why doing this midterm rental was a pretty easy, hand in glove fit for us, because we were already about relationships. We were already kind of somewhat in the hospitality space to a certain degree, that we were trying to do the right things anyway. And that proved itself, because we collected 98% of rent during COVID because we did the things before then. So it proved itself in COVID, and it's proving itself now. And to round it out, you have to have the right expectations going in. You're probably not going to like get a tenant in and never hear from them, but you're not going to get a call every night. So I would just lean on other people in the space. And I would say I have a team that manages for me now. I would say, we probably hear from a tenant, our midterm tenants, we maybe hear from once or twice during their 3 to 4 month stay. And our long-term tenants, we're probably hearing, maybe 2 or 3 times during a year. So it's not something that's going to be a huge time suck for you if you do it the right way from the beginning. If you have a crappy property and you're a crappy landlord or you're a slumlord, then it's going to be a lot of time and energy. It's going to be a pain in the butt. But if you do it the right way, set the expectations and treat people like people, whether they're a tenant or not, then the management can be pretty easy, honestly.
Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Furnished Finder, the ultimate platform for hassle-free midterm rentals. Whether you're a seasoned landlord or just getting started, Furnished Finder has everything you need to find your next tenant. With Furnished Finder, you can say goodbye to booking fees, markups, and commissions, and hello to direct bookings. If you're ready to experience all the benefits renting your property for 30 days or more, head over to FurnishedFinder.com, where you can list your property for one low annual price. We make it easy to get started.
It is very like it's like you've got to really have your host hat on at the beginning. You've got to set everything up right. You need to pick furniture that's not going to break. You need to be thoughtful about, okay, what kitchen utensils do I need to have if someone's staying here for 4 months, right? But you're right. When you put a little extra effort into the front end there and really set up and maybe make a guide or something, so when they move in, they've got some self-service to answer their questions. It's going to make your life as a landlord a lot easier. And I would encourage anyone who, if you hear from your tenants a lot, maybe that's a clue to think into your processes about like, okay, how can I communicate this on, my house rules or my welcome message? I know on Furnished Finder, we have a house rules section that you can fill out and customize. And that could be a good place to put a lot of those things that you answer all of the time, some FAQ that you can communicate to your tenants, because anytime you're answering the same question or something comes up all too often, it means that you need to make a system for it.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. And to kind of piggyback on that real quick, Furnished Finder. So like you said earlier, I have we don't really need to talk about too much, but I do have like a program now about midterm rentals because I believe in them so much. And like literally a section of it is how good Furnished Finders is. I go to the site. I'm like, this is what I walk through the entire site. This is what you see. This is what prospective tenants are going to be looking at. And like, it shows you every single thing you need to know from, booking, getting the listing the right way, and then the supply of the demand and what tenants expect when they move in. So yeah, you guys cover everything on that site, which made my life a lot easier. I almost felt guilty. I gave you all crap. I'm like, they do it all. Just go there, not pay me money.
Let's lean into that a bit more, because we actually like to help you guys. If our landlords decide that they want to get better at what they do, it only helps to join a masterclass. Like, masterclasses are so important in the real estate community to build your network, to build your knowledge. You don't need it. You don't have to have it, but will it elevate your systems and who you are as a professional in the space? Definitely can. So give us a little preview of what your class covers and some of those things that you teach on Furnished Finder.
Yeah, so a lot of the genesis of the program is it's a way for people to get into the midterm space and buy rental properties, midterms using none of their own money. We didn't really talk too much about it, but my rental portfolio, I've been able to use other people's money to buy the entire thing. So I'm kind of mixing that BRRRR method along with the midterm space, rather than, buying them, rehabbing them with other people's money, rather than renting them on Zillow, you rent them on Furnished Finder, basically is where it kind of splits through that. So we walk them through everything, how to do things the right way, because you gals both know you pay for the education either by learning it yourself and screwing up and being inefficient, or by paying for somebody else's screw ups and inefficiencies so you can do it efficiently the right way, which will lead to more profitability, which will also lead to less headaches, which will lead to you probably sticking with it as opposed to maybe not because it's been a pain in the butt. So in general, the goal is just to give them, there's over 80 videos. I go through all of the resources, all of the everything that you guys talk about on Furnished Finder. I walk them through the site of how to see the supply and demand, all of the amazing things and all of the tools that you guys have on your site. I show them that and just show them how to be a landlord the right way through midterm rental properties. And I think doing it the right way with the right guidance will allow you to, make more money. I think it's funny that there's these people, these slumlords, that all they care about is cash flow, but they do things so the wrong way that they don't get the cash flow.
Right.
If you really want the cash flow, do things the right way and you'll get the cash flow. Cutting corners never leads to more cash flow. So it's like what they want, they're literally getting the opposite because of how they do it. So the whole purpose is to show people the right way to do things and how to treat people the right way, and how that has shown itself over and over and over again through, my stuff and a lot of my other students' stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would agree there. And I think especially on Furnished Finder and in midterm rentals, Kelly and I talk about this a lot. Midterm rentals are just different enough, right? Like Zillow or a long-term listing, you're going to have someone reach out. Oh, can I have a showing, right? And I have one long-term rental in our portfolio, so I know this well. I'm like, okay, sure. Every year comes up, we take a week vacancy. If the tenant didn't renew, we're going to put the mulch back in. We're going to get it deep cleaned, do all these things. Then I'm going to have a Saturday where I'm going to have a bunch of showings. Hopefully I don't have to have a ton. And then I'm going to do, the processes with the lease. The short-term rental is kind of the opposite, right? You put the great photos, but nobody asks to see an Airbnb property before they go on vacation in Miami Beach, right? They look at the pictures, maybe ask some questions and book away. Midterm is that middle, but especially on Furnished Finder, since it's not that direct booking site, it's a lead generation site. You're looking for your communication skills and answering those questions and being active on the platform and reaching out to leads that might not even be perfect on paper, but to see if they can work, right? So it really is kind of this zone where you've got to think, you got to put on your hospitality hat, you have to put on your communication hat, and you really have to figure out what's the best way for me to connect, because that's what it is. It's not that booking site, it's a connection site.
Yeah, and midterm tenants are like the best tenants, possible. I think you mentioned it, Katie. We've seen it too. A lot of times they'll like go get a picture or go get something to make it feel more homey. They just leave it there, right? So the short term, you have the families, which we all probably do it, that like have a few more people stay than they say they're going to stay, or people are literally partying there and they're living there. They're spilling stuff. They're not worried about it because they're leaving in 2 days. And the long term, even if they take care of it, they're living there for a year, 2, 3, 4 years. So you're going to have a lot of wear and tear. In this midterm space, you're getting, majority of what we've gotten, and I think the space is traveling nurses, but we do digital nomads, corporate leases. We have a lot of different people that we've kind of that have looked through Furnished Finder to see our properties. But a lot of these traveling nurses, they care. They want the place to feel like home. They work really hard. They go back, they relax, maybe hang out their dog if they bring it, and they're just there and they're living there, but they're living there and they're not partying there, not spending a ton of time there. It's like the perfect mix of somebody occupying it, but not over occupying it.
Yep, for sure. So Sam, how do you decide with your portfolio of a large variety of rental types, how do you decide when you're going to midterm a property?
Well, going forward, if it's in a location that we think makes a good midterm, we're going to turn it into a midterm going forward. But, a majority of what I have is long-term. So that's a little bit more of a decision, whether it's a house or an apartment complex that comes up due. Do we want to spend, I think we're seeing $3 to $5 a square foot-ish to kind of furnish it. So do you have the capital to put into that? You can get it back pretty quickly with midterm rentals is the good news. So that's kind of what we're looking at as well. Do we have an extra $5, $7, $8 to make this property, a good midterm rental and then rent it out? Or do we want to just kind of roll with obviously long-term tenants bring their own furniture in? So that's one deciding factor. But before I wasn't as familiar with it, right? I didn't know as much about it. So that's why before it was mostly long-term with a few short terms, but now over the past several months, and especially creating the 90 videos on how to do it, I learned a lot while I was creating them, and had, one of the coaches in my program, he has 11 midterm rentals in St. Louis here. So he helped out a little bit. So I learned a lot. So going forward, if it makes sense, and especially if we're buying it, rehabbing it, and furnishing it, and being able to still pull out of our cash on a refinance with the BRRRR method, and it's in a good, within, 10-ish minutes of a hospital preferably, we're probably going to turn that thing into a midterm rental, just because the cash flow is, so great, because your expenses are fixed to a certain degree. If you can get more rent, it's just all gravy beyond that. So that's why the midterm is so appealing to me.
Yeah, I love that. It's a good way for us to make these housing options for people who are looking, and then also make it work for landlords and investors as well. So, all right, so let's talk numbers wise. Let's talk about kind of the difference you see between maybe cash flow or property management expenses, fixed expenses, anything that you're comfortable sharing between your midterm rentals and any other class you have. So long-term or short-term, kind of where does the midterm fall within your portfolio for performance?
Okay, yeah, we can get into those, and I don't any problem sharing any numbers. I just don't know all the exact, like to the detail numbers.
That's all right.
That we have fortunate enough to have to the point where I have a accounting staff that kind of takes care of all of that, and property management in-house that takes care of all of that. But I do know some general numbers. I know our occupancy for our midterms is in that mid-80s, which I think is incredible considering we're getting potentially some of our double the rent. Double the gross rent. Not, it breaks out to more than that, the actual net rent, but you get net cash flow, but you get double the gross rent for most of what we're doing. And our occupancy is, mid 80s, 85% on the midterm, as opposed to long term is, low 90s, and, short term is in that 50, 60 range. So the occupancy is super close to long term, but you're getting twice as much rent. And we've noticed that almost every unit that we've contacted the agency or the tenant, and are they renewing, are they staying, what are they doing, contact them a month out, we put available on this date, and we're having a day or two in between, maybe, because you go in there, the tenants take care of the property, just needs a quick cleaning, it doesn't need all this stuff. So that's part of the reason why the occupancy is so high, because you can plan ahead a little bit, and then the demand is there like crazy. So as far as cash flow goes, we're getting, I would say conservatively probably 4 to 5 times as much net cash flow versus our long-term rentals, with maybe a little bit more property management, just because we're moving people out 3 or 4 times a year. But it's not this whole, when your long-term tenants move out, they take their furniture, they bump the walls, they have these pictures that they put up because they're staying there. On a midterm basis, they, if they put a picture up, they're leaving it from what we've seen, or they're just, they're not decorating it themselves. So the overhead is, minimal, and then the top end is much higher with the more rent that we're getting. So it's almost like I feel like this is like 2003, 2004 in the short-term space. This is where we are right now in the midterm space. I feel like there's just so much room to continue to grow.
Yeah, the difference in expenses between a long-term and a midterm, once you get past that initial, furnishing kind of hurdle, it's incredible how the difference really isn't that much between your expenses, right? You're going to cover your utilities. I have actually a utility cap in my leases, just because I don't want people going in and, like, in the winter cranking the heat to 85 degrees every night or whatnot. I'm like, I want you to have a little skin in the game. But it's a reasonable cap. Like, there's no reason anyone should go over it. But beyond that, it's like you said, these tenants take such good care of it. I just had a property that my cleaner went to last week, and she was like, yep, everything looks great. You might want to put some new towels in there at some point. They're starting to get kind of dingy. But I'm like, that's kind of like the exception to my rule even. Like, usually it's like, oh, it's all great. It's good. It's done. So you're going to have like some replacement things, but they're so far and few between compared to the short term and compared to the long term. Like you said, it's amazing when you're turning over a long term, how many little things come up and how expensive that can be. So yeah, it's the expenses are really tight on those two. And then you go to short term, and those expenses can get really fast, really quickly, especially when you're thinking that you've got that booking fee as well. So, the customer pays one amount and that's not what you're seeing. So that's a nice difference as well. So, all right, let's talk about some tips in the midterm rental space that you can share with our listeners, because you're going to come out with this program and you've had some time in the midterm rental space yourself now. So we always love some good tips and tricks. What are some that you can pass on that maybe are a little bit unique, or things that have really helped you along the way?
Hey landlords, are you ready to level up your rental game and simplify your midterm rental business? Well, get ready to meet your new best friend, KeyCheck. KeyCheck is your all-in-one solution for stress-free property management. With tenant-paid screenings, online rent payment processing, custom lease creation, and a suite of incredible landlord tools, you'll wonder how you ever lived without it. No more chasing down checks or sifting through piles of applications. KeyCheck helps you organize and manage all things landlording in a simple and efficient way. Make landlord life a breeze with KeyCheck, the game changer for modern property owners. Visit keycheck.com to unlock the power of stress-free property management and take your rental business to new heights.
Yeah, so what we like to do is we like to, we kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, but there's, that welcome packet that we have. So we have a digital version, as well as, like a, kind of like a, a little binder there with all the local restaurants, where the local dry cleaner is, where the local dog park is, kind of like a little bit like unique things to that area, so they kind of feel more at home when they're there. So that's something that, we definitely don't do in the long-term space, but just showing them that, what is around and giving them something, we give them that via email, the digital copy of that before they move in, and then they have that copy there. So that's just, One thing we do that really seems to, make them feel like they're more at home, and something that, they feel like we're willing to go the extra mile and help them out. Because I feel like midterms, especially with Furnished Finder, like it's the easiest one to self-manage. Short term, you're probably going to want to hire that out because of the cleaning and the overhead and the in and out. And then long term, it's intimidating for people to have to approve somebody based on their credit score and their background. But Furnished Finder with midterms, you can go, obviously you're going to do your own due diligence, but Furnished Finder has the background checking itself. It has the leasing itself. It has all of that there for you. So you still do your own work, but it's kind of done for you. And managing long terms, if you're outsourcing that, because you're nervous about it because they're going to be there. I get that, moving in and it's a big commitment. You're like marrying them for a year or two, and you might have to evict them and everything. That can take a lot of time and energy, or it costs 10-15% of rent, plus leasing fees. But with Furnished Finder, you can do it like in-house for very inexpensively the right way. So that's a huge thing that we have noticed is most of our people are just doing it themselves because Furnished Finder gives them all the options and all the tools to do it, which saves them a lot of money.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. KeyCheck is Furnished Finder's sister company that is your go-to source for once a tenant says, yes, I want to move forward. And it's like, what do I do next? You go to KeyCheck and you have all those steps there. The tenant screening, state-specific leases, rent payments. It walks you through the process. It's so nice. I'm going to transition us to a new conversation, and this one's a fun one for me. As we engage in our audience feedback on YouTube, I like to incorporate those questions into further episodes, and I think, Sam, you are the perfect person to ask quite a few of these questions too. So let's get into some of them. Godfrey Chatfield, an Austin, Texas firefighter, he wants advice on whether you should put your arbitrage portfolio or rental portfolio into an LLC, multiple LLCs, or no LLC at all. Now, we know legally you can't give, legal advice, but you can speak to your own portfolio.
Yeah, for sure. No, this is a great question. There's a lot of people, when should they start an LLC is I think the genesis of this question, and then how many after that. So I always tell people starting an LLC should be the number one thing you should do, because obviously you're going to be protecting yourselves and your personal assets from your business assets, but also you're able to, if you have a business bank account, everything runs through your LLC. The accounting, the write-offs, the tax savings are so much easier. You can write off your, house. If you have an office there that you work at the right amount of time, you can write off some mileage, a cell phone bill. So those type of financial and protective things. But also, in my opinion, something that's not talked about enough is if you start an LLC, you are a small business owner. I feel like it becomes more real. It's not something, hey, I'm maybe going to invest in real estate in the future. It's a side hustle, but it's something that I might get to. But if, for a few $100 or several $100, depending on, how you set up your LLC, you're now a small business owner. You're probably going to create, a logo through Fiverr. You're going to create an email address, maybe a Facebook business page, create some business cards, talk about it more. You're just going to take it more seriously if you have that $800, $400, whatever it is, LLC set up, if you don't, go the expensive lawyer route. So I think just doing it will allow you to protect yourself financially and legally, but also will kind of start to create that mindset that you are now a small business owner. So treat it as such. And the more you treat this like a business, the more successful you're going to be. Then as far as how many to set up, I think that really depends what we do. And again, like you said, everybody consult your own legal counsel. But what we do is about every 30 to 40 houses, we start a new LLC. We do not start an LLC for every single house. About every 30 to 40 houses, we start an LLC. But then if it's an apartment complex or a self-storage facility or a hotel or a bigger project, we start an own LLC for that. So I think I have about 15 LLCs for my almost 300 rental doors. So it's definitely not every property, but that's how we separate it out.
And guys, you can be a side hustler and you can have one property and have an LLC. Like it sounds very, very intimidating, and it does not have to be. It does vary state by state. So you need to figure that out. But like Sam's right, it gives you all these write-offs that you can't have otherwise in a lot of cases. And it's not difficult to get. It sounds so intimidating. It does not have to be. So, all right. Our next question. Do you have a top list of one, two, or three things of landlord mistakes not to make?
Oh gosh, how much time do you ladies have? How many mistakes how many?
Right? But like this isn't talked about enough, right? Like we don't talk about our failures and our missteps, and those are usually what we learn way more from than like our successes.
For sure. So I have some general ones that I have done and I've seen a lot of students make it. And the first one is, when you're running your numbers, you cannot assume that everything is going to go to plan. You have to be conservative on your initial underwriting. If the property is probably worth $300,000 when you're running your initial underwrite fix up, say it's worth $290,000, say it's worth $285,000. If it needs about $45,000 in rehab, say it needs $50,000, say it needs $55,000. Just get a little more conservative and realistic with your numbers, because we physically rehab about 75 houses a year, and about 75 houses come in over budget. So we do it all day, every day, but still things don't always go according to plan. So I would tell a lot of people that they get excited about it, and they kind of take off the analytical side and get the emotional side into it. And I get it, because it's super exciting. It's incredible. You're taking the steps to change your life and to better it and create a financial future that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So incredible. Good on you. However, you still have to have that analytic side, and you have to take emotion out of it as much as possible and just be extra conservative. And if you miss a couple deals because you're a little more conservative than the competition, that's better than getting in a deal that's going to either give you a bad taste in your mouth or financially hurt you. So that would be the main thing that I would tell people to do. And then the second thing, and then we can dive deeper and move on, is set it's similar, but set clear expectations and set the right expectations. If you think that you're going to get rich in 6 months, you're going to be disappointed and you're going to quit. But if you understand that in the next 6 years you can create financial impact and you can buy a handful of rental properties that will affect your great grandkids and have that expectation, you're more likely to push through, because you're not going to be disappointed at what you've accomplished. So this is wealth, not widgets. Like I said earlier, this takes time, energy, and effort, and it doesn't happen overnight. So many people go in with the wrong expectations and quit because of those expectations. Not even that they did anything wrong. They just expected more than what was realistic, and they're disappointed, so they quit. So push yourself. I'm not telling people not to dream, but just have realistic expectations at the time and energy this is going to take you to accomplish.
Definitely. Okay, Susan has a great question that I think will make an excellent roundtable discussion for all of us to answer. Sam, we'll start with you. Do you prefer single-family homes or 1 to 2 bedroom apartments for midterm rentals, and why?
Yes, I love them all. So my answer is I don't. My answer is take each one on a case-by-case basis, and whichever makes more sense to do with that specific deal is what I would say do. But I love, and I know a lot of people, so I don't have a ton of 1 to 2 units. It's either singles or, like 10, 20, 30 unit apartment complexes. But I know a lot of people, and I think, Katie, maybe you do this. You have like a duplex, one side you can do long-term and one side midterm, so you can kind of feel it out, and then maybe do both midterm or one short-term, one midterm. Whatever that looks like, it does give you a little bit of flexibility.
That was my first midterm. Second midterm rental was our duplex. The first was our house. We said, hey, let's try out this midterm rental strategy. So we'll just put our own place up on Furnished Finder, and if it books, we'll go find somewhere else for the meantime. So then a couple years, we started investing in multiple properties, and we would do the same thing. And I think within 2 years, we had 4 to 5 properties. Now we're at 7. And so, what's the preference, single family homes or condos? We have definitely leaned towards single family homes for the appreciation side. In the long run, appreciation's going to go a lot further over the years than cash flow will, but cash flow is important for those that are looking to supplement their income in the current situation. So to me, single family homes, duplexes, they provide that opportunity to increase your cash flow and appreciation at the same time. And our best performing properties, of course, are the ones that are single family homes with an ADU of some sort on the property as well.
Yeah, actually all of our midterm rentals are some sort of unit. They're condos or apartments or townhouses. For us, we would love to get some more single family homes as midterm rentals. But we are trying to build up some steady, easy fillers that we can get the cash flow every month to try to fund those larger purchases. So ours is kind of a strategy of the chicken and the egg. We definitely want both of them. Also, from a management perspective, the closest of ours to me is about 850 miles. So if I don't have to manage lawn work and snow removal and roof and siding, that makes my life a lot easier, and I definitely appreciate that. But so that's kind of been our approach, is like, let's get, we know we're not going to have a lot of appreciation in these. A good handful of ours are arbitrage, so we literally have no appreciation in any of them, but it's kind of filling our bucket, so then we can go in and put that into a single family midterm rental or something like that. So there's a lot of different ways you can spin it, right? And there's no bad answer. What's right is that you figure out what your goals are and what your situation is and what works for you. So I think that is huge importance. So all right. So Sam, we have a lot of mom and pop investors on Furnished Finder. Maybe people who even want to just rent out a spare bedroom, or they have an ADU, or they're leaving their property for 6 months, so they want to backfill it. We have a lot of medical professionals themselves who travel, and they're like, well, let's rent out my home while I'm not there, right? And for them, even just covering the mortgage is great, because they're still, getting that appreciation. They're getting the tax benefits of owning the real estate. And, they're not looking for the cash flow necessarily. So for those people who are looking for the next steps in real estate, and maybe they're not trying to be the next mogul, right? They're just trying to look, what's my first step? What would you suggest? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, if somebody's wanting to get into the real estate space, I think there's usually, two steps I tell people to take, because I am definitely one of those people that I don't love it when people speak in absolutes or think that their way is the only way. That's a beautiful thing about real estate. There is a million different ways to make $1 million. Literally, there's so many different levers you can pull. But in general, I think if you want to set yourself up for success, I think there are a couple of things that everyone should do. I'm not going to say has to do, because I hate it when people say you have to do something, but I think you should if you want to be successful. And that's two things. Number one is you have to get a base level of knowledge. You don't have to become an expert. You're not going to become an expert unless you actually go do it. You can only learn, I always say, about 20-25% on the sidelines. The other 75-80% you have to go in and actually take action. So get a base level of knowledge. So listen to podcasts like this, listen to other great resources out there. There is so much information out there. When I got started, there was Bigger Pockets, and that was about it. So there is so many other resources that you can pull from, and spend some extra time here, listen to this podcast, this YouTube channel, this Instagram. So get a base level of knowledge and understand what the difference between midterm and short term and long term is. What's the difference between wholesaling and fix and flipping? So just a base level of knowledge, so that when you are in the rooms for step two I'm getting ready to talk about, you understand the conversations and can soak more of it in, and people aren't talking over your head to a certain degree. And then step two, which is equally as important, maybe more, is getting involved in your market, your local industry, wherever you're going to be investing. You cannot do this alone. You need people to sell houses to buy houses from. You need insurance agents, you need contractors, you need lenders, you need lawyers, you need so many different people to make this work, but they all connect in meetups via online or in person. The real estate investing industry is not that big of actual people that are doing things and making moves. So get a base level of knowledge and connect with your local community. You do those two things, and then you're going to take it a million different directions, but those are two really good base, solid, foundational tools that will help you grow, that will help you get there much faster than trying to do it on your own, because you cannot do this on your own.
Great advice. Thank you for that. Okay, we're down to the last question in this section. Terry Roberts has an excellent question. Masterminds can be very expensive, which we all know. How can you tell which real estate courses are worth spending a potential rental property down payment on?
That's a great question. I get this one a lot, because I have a coaching program, as you mentioned. I have a coaching community. So a couple different things. I would follow whoever's, if they have a social media. I think they don't have to, but I think that just gives you that little bit of confidence. There's these people that are, flexing in front of Lamborghinis and they made money in real estate. So then they created a coaching program and the margins are better in coaching. The risk is less. So they kind of get away from what got them there. And they're just about, filling seats and collecting cash and making money and not really fulfilling it because they don't do it anymore. So there's a whole gamut of people online selling courses and programs. So what I tell people, even when they ask to sign up for mine, I say, go follow my social media, go check out my stuff, make sure you like the way that I teach, what I do, how I do it, and then we can have a conversation, see if the best fit for you. I think gone are the days where you do a video in front of like a Lamborghini or in front of a nice car and you're flexing and bragging about how much money you make. You have a wad of real cash on your desk. Like that those days are over. People are sick of that. They can see through that now. So just try to find somebody that you see online that's authentic, that has done it, but is continuing to do it. Like I own, close to $50 million worth of real estate. I want to own $1 billion worth of real estate. So I'm going to be continuing to push the limits, test things, try things, and I'm super, super actively involved. I'm a real estate investor that tends to educate. I'm not an educator just trying to make money on something I used to do. So I think that's a big thing is follow them on social media, try to get some referrals from people that they've already gone through their program. They should have some evidence of success. And then you just have to eventually just kind of write that check. As I alluded to earlier, you're going to pay for the education either way. You're not going to go into this and be 100% efficient. You're going to have less cash flow, have less equity, or maybe potentially lose money or not make as much money doing it on your own. Or you can kind of pay for that groove path and make less mistakes and, potentially make more money, but you're still going to make mistakes, but just potentially less. So you're not going to do this 100% efficiently no matter what, but paying for somebody else's knowledge will help that be a lot smoother. And I do have cash on my desk, but it's Chinese. It's just like fake Chinese money. So it's not real. I don't brag about it.
I'm gonna have to ask about that. Why do you keep that on your desk?
Well, I do videos with this. I have like videos where I talk about like cups where cash flow goes. So I don't show it off. It's a prop for videos.
It's a prop. Great.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, my last question for this episode, and then Katie may have one to wrap us up or a couple, is you have written a book, Own Your Freedom. We know financial freedom is a huge topic right now. So what is Own Your Freedom about, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, so Own Your Freedom is a book that I wrote. It took me about 18 months to write. I hired a ghostwriter, and we met, went over the topics, and we met on a weekly basis, and I can't even tell how many hours I spent on it. And then they kind of wrote it and I got it and it was horrible. It wasn't how I would speak or talk. So I ended up trashing that and writing it all myself. So I ended up, taking about twice as long as it should have. But it's basically just kind of a, just goes through my journey of, kind of how I grew up. Because I like to joke, I'm like as normal as it gets. I didn't come from money. I didn't inherit money. I didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial household. But I've been able to do some pretty cool things. And my baseline is normal, and the definition of normal is most people, have that same experience. So I wrote it to encourage other normal people that they can achieve really, really cool things. So I just walked through my journey of, growing up to playing, sports in high school, to going to college, to thinking I was going to be a W-2 employee my whole life, to, experimenting in real estate, to going all in and to scaling. So just kind of walks through my journeys and has a ton of different stories along the way of how people can, do the same thing that I did or make their own version of what I did. I even created 40 videos that come with the book that are just kind of something you buy the book, has a QR code on it for more teaching and learning, and it's 99 cents for the ebook and $5 for the actual hard copy. So it's something that I don't make a profit on. It's just kind of a brand builder as well as something to help people understand it a little bit more.
Excellent.
Well, I think we have covered so much. It's been so great to connect with you again. I think, this underlying theme of educating and connecting and learning, especially in this midterm space as it gets larger. And we're talking about platforms like Furnished Finder, where, you've got to make sure you're using the platform the best way possible and that you're operating as a landlord in the best way possible. These connections and listening to content like this, right? Taking the time to listen to podcasts and read the books and connect with other investors or other landlords or other, agents, whatever is in your in your realm, the benefits are so exponential. So it was so great to talk with you again. Thank you so much. I'm sure, maybe we can connect again sometime, but we can't wait to see how much you do within the midterm rental space, and what a big splash you make.
I'm excited to hopefully get in more people in here doing it the right way, and using Furnished Finder as a part of that for sure.
This has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. We always like to make sure that our listeners know how to connect with you if they want more information. So how would you like them to make sure and see what you're up to and keep up with your stuff?
Yeah, so I'm big on social media, as we mentioned earlier. I spend a lot of time and energy on that. So just whatever social media platform you're on, just shoot me a follow. It'll be under the name Sam Primm or Sam FasterFreedom, the name of my education brand. So just find me there, check out my stuff. As I said, I have a podcast, The FasterFreedom Show. And then if you want more information, the best thing to do is either go to my website, FasterFreedom.com, or just shoot me a message on Instagram, and I'll be glad to point you in the right direction.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate you and everyone listening. Don't forget to tune in every Monday for a brand new episode on the Landlord Diaries. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.